This is a Sports Radio Live podcast covering your world of sports. Bryan Houston's Sports Radio Live. It's weekdays at 3 on 99.3 Talk FM, the talk of East Texas.
So we decided we'd double screw him this week and make him come on twice for free. Mac Engel is with us now. How you doing, Mac?
Good, Brian. I always enjoy the good old-fashioned double screw.
Hey, listen, we had a guy, a TV station I used to work at. This guy looked like Doogie Howser, okay? And he was always the one that we would send into the nude bars with the hidden cameras to do those. You know, he's kind of a kid that had never seen a place like this in his life. We'd always send him to these things, or we'd send him off to, you know, the child molestation cases up in Gilmer or someplace. And we called him the deviant behavior specialist for our TV station. That's what we're going to do for you now. We're going to let you be the deviant behavior specialist for the Sports Radio Live. Is that okay?
This is kind of sad that in my career I have now devolved to the point where I am on pedophile patrol.
Bigger villain, Joe Paterno or Bane?
Wow, good question. Since we haven't seen one, although, you know what, a lot of that movie was shot in Pittsburgh, so they have the Pennsylvania tie.
I wonder maybe who do you think might have been behind the mask then?
Good question. You know, I have recently, I don't know if you saw this on my blog, I got a good kick out of this, Brian, but I was in a store the other day where I found a children's book of The Dark Knight Rises. This is true. And if you I read it, and I bought it for my daughter.
Spoiler alert.
It is spoiler. This is a children's book. And you would think with all the painstaking lengths that directors, producers, and actors take these days to prevent leaks of their movies coming out before they hit the big screen, why in God's name would they give the script to a child book author so they can put the movie out a month in advance?
That's just wrong.
I read the book, and I'm telling you, if you look at the trailers of the movie, and then you read this little 32-page children's book, that's the movie.
And you know what happens then? Your 3-year-old takes the iPhone and calls all her 3-year-old friends, right. and it goes viral, and the whole thing's screwed.
There's no doubt. It's all these kids Twittering and Facebooking and having sex and all this disgusting behavior that's tearing apart our society.
I'm loving it. Hey, just wait till she's 5, okay?
Right, just wait. And then the real bad news, she's going to become a head coach at Penn State.
Oh, man.
Hey,
wow.
No,
God, please, no.
Too soon? Sorry.
Yeah,
sorry,
a little early. It's okay. It's not like we hadn't crossed the line a few times. In all seriousness, you got a chance, I'm sure, like everybody else. I mean, you can't turn on a TV and not hear about the free report. And, I mean, there's nothing in there that is good news for Penn State.
No, but I think, Brian, the bigger surprise is that we're surprised.
Yeah.
We had been justifiably right in being very careful in trying to assign too much blame on Paterno. I think a lot of people, not everybody, but a lot of people had been, you know, really hesitant to put this all on his feet. And here in the last couple of weeks, and especially today, here we get the final confirmation that Joe Paterno acted just like another head college football coach who was trying to protect his own, protect his job, and protect his school, rather than look out for what we now know as some exceptionally vulnerable and tragically exploited young people. There is no getting around this one, Brian. I don't think we're too quick on the trigger to say that what Joe Paterno did today is one of the most, what it was confirmed that he did by not doing anything over the last decade in regards to Jerry Sandusky, may be one of the most egregious errors of inaction that we've ever seen in Division I coaching.
And then I had somebody come in my office today, or you know, this thing that we call an office, and defend him by saying, well, good Lord, the guy's 82 or whatever years old. I'm going, wait a minute. If he is young enough and sharp enough to run a multi-million-dollar operation like Penn State football, age is no excuse.
I couldn't agree more. And I don't know how you can defend what Joe Paterno didn't do in this case. I don't know. I would have been fascinated to hear the explanation on that one. The guy failed, and it's one thing if you fail in terms of your marriage, maybe raising a parent, you weren't there enough, or you smothered them, or any number of sins that we commit as adults. This one, though, was a not malicious, deliberate act of inaction. And I wrote it today in sort of a quick column after the free report and the press conference was announced. It was as if everybody involved who knew buried their head in the sand and said, if we don't talk about it, it will go away.
Completely.
And I don't know if there is a better comparison than what Penn State football did in regard to the Sandusky case than what the Catholic Church did in regards to the the pre-sex scandals that occurred, what we now know as all over the world.
Yeah.
They just didn't want to do anything about it because it's so utterly humiliating.
I think, and you tell me if you agree or disagree on this, I think that this is the kind of thing that should get Penn State the death penalty in all sports because it came from the president down.
I go back and forth on that one. It's funny. I don't know. I live in Texas now for 15 years, so I understand the death penalty in a literal sense is very much a part of the culture here, but I still very much wrestle with it, pro and con. And on this one, I say you give it the death penalty when all of the major players, literally in this case, are either dead or gone. I would have said initially, Brian, I totally agree with you, and I think if it happened, I don't know if I'd really complain about it and say this was a wrong. But when Penn State came to Dallas to the Ticket City Bowl in December to play, at the University of Houston, and I met those players, and guys like Zordich and a handful of other ones, and I came away so impressed, and I felt so badly for what these guys who had zero to do with this and had no knowledge of this. And I thought, you know what, I don't know how you can punish these guys. But at the same time, how do you let the institution get away with this? Because the NCAA likes to punish universities and athletic departments under the guise of lack of institutional control. If this is not a case of a lack of institutional control, then I don't know what is.
Well, here's the ironic thing, and I thought about that term, that there was institutional control. They all knew about it and all chose deliberately to do nothing.
Yeah, and it's funny, even the words came out of my mouth, I thought about that. Yeah, this was control, just of the worst possible kind. And, Brian, I don't know if you know anybody who's ever been sexually abused or molested, either as an adult.
I do.
Either you knew them as an adult or you knew them as when you were a kid. But I can understand the level of discomfort and embarrassment and humiliation that comes with this. It's never happened to me. I have loved ones who experience this. But I understand that when you're the adult and you're confronted with, listen, you got to do something on something like this, you might have experienced that feeling of inaction. Well, what do I do? And you get paralyzed by fear of the confrontation, which is enormous, of destroying a life, which you will do. So you just don't do anything. And what Penn State's leadership did was to choose to do, we're scared, we're not going to do anything. And we're just going to push this guy off to the fringe, out of sight, out of mind, and that way we just don't have to deal with it.
They didn't even do that though with Sandusky. They didn't even cut him off from the athletic facilities. They just continued to give him a key and say, "Yeah, come on in the shower anytime you'd like." I mean,
you're right.
They never even, even quietly just said, "Listen, you just need to go away."
No, you're right. They didn't even kick him out. Like I'm sitting here as I'm saying this, and I'm listening to you, and I thought about this at the time. I'm like, yeah, you're right. They didn't even kick him out.
No.
They didn't stop his payments. They didn't say you're not welcome here. They didn't banish him. They just said you can't work here anymore. Other than that, you have free reign.
And he did. And he did. I saw where the Nike Center, the child development center they have at Nike, they're going to take the Joe Paterno name off of it. They got to tear that statue down, don't they, at the stadium?
I don't know how they keep it up. I thought about that when Phil Knight did. Phil Knight came out during the Paterno Memorial and had some rather strong comments that were very pro-Paterno.
Sure.
And now, with everything that's being released, I don't see what choice Phil Knight has in this issue other than to do what he did today, which is to really begin the effort to distance himself from Paterno and this legacy that is now tarnished forever.
And I know the
in
Big
regards
Ten.
to Penn State and what you asked, I don't know how they keep it up. I don't know how you keep it. Maybe I'm with you. I think in light of all this, I don't know how. I think you got to take it down.
I mean, every time the national media goes there to cover a football game, and that statue's sitting there as a slap in the face to every child who was molested, on that campus. I mean, they're going to get crushed. Just absolutely crushed.
You're right. The columnists like me, sports commentators, sports fans are going to go there and either mock it, criticize it, or eventually they're going to throw things at it and desecrate it, and it's going to become an object of violence. So you're almost better off, getting out ahead of this, even though you've been behind it the whole way, and just take the thing down and put it in a storage shed someplace, or melt it down and turn it into, I have no idea what.
Craig and I were talking just a few minutes ago in the last hour about had we ever seen someone fall so fast from being an iconic figure to being so reviled in just a matter of the few hours that the Free Report came out? And the only person that comes to mind is O.J. Simpson, who prior to the Bronco was one of the most popular athletes in the history of sports, and then almost from the point that the Bronco broke up the NBA game you're trying to watch that night, from that point on, this guy's one of the most hated guys in America now. Is there ever a chance, do you ever see a possibility where Joe Paterno is thought about in any other terms than being an absolute scumbag?
Yeah, I do. I do think if you put enough time between the bad and the bad and whatever, I think people are going to put him in a more different. I think people are going to eventually say that this man lived. I mean, for all we know, what he did. I'm not defending it. Mm-hmm. For what all I knew, basically, he turned a blind eye to this for 10 or so years. Is that God? That's incredible. I just said that. So 10 or so years. The guy lived till he was 85. So between the time he's 20 and 75, by all accounts, he led a good life. We think you can't take that away from his legacy and his not screw his legacy. You can't take that off his resume. What he did.
Right.
He helped people. He helped the university. He helped an institution. He did all that. He also did this. It stains that. It doesn't erase it. It doesn't take it away. There are former college football players all over the United States who are better people and are in a better position for life because of what Joe Paterno did for them, either academically or athletically. You can't take that away from him. This disgusting non-action doesn't take that away from him, but those things that he did from all that good cannot change the horrid that he did in light of what these last 10 years show that he did. He did both, and that makes him yet another case of a very complex, less than black and white man. He was as flawed as the rest of us. The difference is his flaw is not like many of the flaws that you and I know people who commit in our own neighborhood or even in our own house on a daily basis. This one is a mother home run of a screw-up.
Yeah, and lives of children, and God knows how many of them ruined from all of this.
Yeah, and that is the sad part. He is not responsible at all for what Jerry Sandusky did. Jerry Sandusky is in charge of what Jerry Sandusky did to those young kids, and he has to answer to that himself. Joe Paterno is not responsible for that. Joe Paterno is responsible for not having interceded and stopped him when he knew it was going on.
It's just, it's mind-boggling. I know I told you we'd talk about the Mavericks. I hate to even transfer into this, or
No, we should. I mean, it's a little bit lighter.
All right, let's do that let's just do this for a few minutes then. For a long time there, over the last 2 weeks, we thought that there was not even a corpse anywhere near the Mavericks headquarters, and then suddenly last night, Dracula sprang to life, and they added a few players, and I don't know that they did anything that's going to make them any better or not, but what do you think?
I think by doing what the Mavs did and signing Chris Kaman into a one-year deal and trading for Darren Collison and Dante Jones for Ian Mahimi is that they have decided we are not going to blow this up, and we're going to try to remain competitive. We're going to try to remain afloat. I think even with Dirk at 34, he's good enough with Darren Collison at the point, and with Chris Kaman down low, and maybe they go get somebody else, especially if it's Elton Brand. They can maybe challenge for the 6th seed in the West, maybe.
Kind of like this year.
Yeah, kind of. I mean, Darren Collison has a nice upside. He's a good defender. He's a good on-the-ball defender. He's regressed a little bit since his rookie year. There is some potential there. He can be a restricted free agent after this season, so there's flexibility. Chris Kaman, when he's healthy, is a really nice offensive player. He's not a very good defender. He's certainly not Tyson Chandler. But he can do some things offensively that the Mavs have never really had in the post that I can think of. Dante Jones is a really good wing defender. He'll get in you a little bit. So I think what they've done is that they've improved their roster, and they've given themselves a chance to have a nice competitive season, maybe make a run at 48 wins, if everything goes right, 50. But it doesn't change the fact that they are not good enough to contend for an NBA title. What they did decide to do was, we're not blowing this up and going to the lottery. We're going for the middle.
So you think that with the lineup that they can put on the floor, that they could get to 50 wins next year?
I think that's if they get Elton Brand. And even if they get Elton Brand, the problem is he's going to want to occupy the same spot on the floor as Chris Kaman. And as we saw with Lamar Odom last year, when you have the exact same guy who needs to occupy the exact same space on the floor as the other guy,
yeah,
that's a problem. It's a logjam. So I think even if they get Brand, he's a nice player, but there's a reason why the 76ers are using their amnesty clause to buy him out. They want him to go away. So as nice of a player as Brand is, he's just going to help make him okay. And yeah, this is glass half full. Everything's perfect. They can get to 50 wins. I don't think they are, but I think they could. I'm
just wondering where the points are going to come from, because Dirk looks like he's the only guy in the entire roster that can score now.
Well, you bring up a good point. I mean, Dirk obviously can go for 20. Chris Kaman can get you 13 to 15. They certainly don't have anybody like a Jason Terry who can shoot it from outside. Darren Collison is a penetrator. Darren Collison can be a really good NBA point guard, but he's still got a lot of growing up to do. It's a really streaky player, and I watched him a lot with the Pacers. I'm still a Pacers fan, so there's something there with that. But again, there's a reason why the Pacers traded him, because they didn't think he was as good as they've got George Hill. They didn't think he was as good as George Hill. So you're getting a Pacers not reject, but a guy that they didn't think who was going to reach the level that the Mavs need him to reach. But that's where they are. I think they're not going to be done making moves. Donnie Nelson, Mark Cuban have proven to be resourceful and remain keep this team competitive. I think they can stay competitive. I just think ultimately they're not going to contend for the title the way we got spoiled to in 2006 and certainly 2 years ago.
I'm just going to go out on a limb here with my learned opinion on this. I do believe this current Dallas Mavericks roster, as it's put together now just in the last 24 hours, could beat the 92 Dream Team.
I don't think that's out of left field. I don't think you're speaking out of turn there. If you look at matchup-wise, Dante Jones, Sean Marion. Hey, listen to Mark Cuban. Sean Marion is one of the best defenders in the history of the NBA. He's going to shut down Jordan, David Robinson, Barkley, Malone, Stockton.
I can see it. I'm envisioning it right now. I mean, I could just see, I can see Kaman posterizing Patrick Ewing.
There's no doubt. You can do it. The tragedy is, and tragedy is the right word, is that we will not get to see this matchup of the 2012-2013 Dallas Mavericks versus the 92 Dream Team.
But you know what? Somebody out there will create a video game, by God, and we will have that matchup.
I can't wait to watch that or play that one.
I'm sure you can't.
Yeah.
Hey, Mac, great talking to you, man. Hope you have a great vacation. Thanks for coming on with us today. We really appreciate it.
Okay, no problem. Thanks, Brian.
And remember now, from now on, man, you are the deviant behavior expert for the
Mac Engel, Pedophile Patrol.
Oh, and by the way, tell people where they can read all this genius that comes down every day.
Guys, put down your kids, quit paying attention to your children, your wives, your loved ones, and go to the Google machine and go to the Big Mac blog. You will not need to go anywhere else ever. It answers all of your pertinent sports, pop culture, and life questions.
It's true. It's changed my life. I just want you to know.
Unfortunately, it's worse. Your dog died and your wife left you.
Well, in the case of the dog, that wasn't a bad thing, though, okay?
Hey, we can all wish.
Yeah. Hey, Mac, have a great vacation, buddy. Thank you.
Okay, Brian, thanks a lot.
All right, you bet. Mac Engel from the Fort Worth Star-Telegram on Bryan Houston Sports Radio Live on 99.3 Talk FM.
This is a Sports Radio Live podcast covering your world of sports. Bryan Houston's Sports Radio Live. It's weekdays at 3 on 99.3 Talk FM, the talk of East Texas.